Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Coming to you from Rochester, Minnesota, our town. So what is October without a little bit of fun and a little bit of horror? The Rochester Repertory Theatre has just kicked off its production of Evil Dead, the musical. And here to tell us all about the show is Annie Landcamer. Welcome to our town, Annie.
Thank you for having me.
So this production has notoriously been postponed a couple of times this year, due to COVID. What did it feel like on opening night this past weekend when it finally opened?
I think a little bit surreal. I wasn't fully sure we would even ever get here to this point. So when it actually happened, it felt really good to finally see this vision coming to life.
So without any spoilers, can you tell us a little bit about what the show is about? And the second part of my question is, how have you and the actors put your own twist on this musical?
So those are great questions. So the play is based off of 3 pretty classic horror movies and is kind of combined all into one film musical just to make it a joke. It's a big giant parody of all horror films. So you don't necessarily have to know the ones that is specifically written from to enjoy the humor of making fun of the classic horror jokes that happen. So that has been a lot of fun. It just makes rehearsals, makes us all laugh a lot with it. If you're a Bruce Campbell fan, you would also very much appreciate the show in that genre. The cast and I'm very much into putting my own spin on every production that I do. So I really try to collaborate a lot with the cast and the crew in what their ideas are for how a line is said or a certain scene and different things like that. And so that's really what we have done to make it our own, while still doing our best to stay true to that genre.
So how long is the show running?
The show, it runs for about an hour and a half, and there's a 15-minute intermission, and it is October 14th to 17th this weekend.
Fantastic. I guess most importantly, how can people still see the show and get tickets?
Yes, the tickets would be on the Rochester Repertory Theatre, and the biggest thing to remember, though, that it is a Rochester Repertory Theatre production, but is actually being performed on the main stage at the Rochester Civic Theatre. So can easily be confusion on that, but you do want to go to the rochesterrep.com in order to purchase tickets or call the box office.
So people should not call the Civic Theatre for tickets.
Correct.
Good to know. And part of the reason, correct me if I'm wrong, that it is at the theater is because the rep is currently under construction.
Yes, they are finishing up a very big remodel that will be displayed during their Christmas production. So we're very excited to be able to see all of the hard work that our volunteers have done for the remodel.
That's fantastic. I always love to ask this question of directors and folks sort of working in theater, especially during this year that's been so difficult for so many productions to just get off the ground and for people to go and see shows. What has sort of the impact of the pandemic had on sort of the way that you do your sort of artistic work?
Okay, how that has impacted us is we've really been creative with rehearsal space. So thankfully at the Repertory Theatre, they have an upstairs classroom that we can use, and then they have the downstairs, the main stage that we could use. And so we did our best to really split up rehearsals when somebody was working on choreography and then somebody else was working on music. And so kind of just keeping distance. And then even though we're not masked on stage during the production, we stayed masked throughout all of the rehearsals. Just to help. Although it was a challenge because always in the back of your head, you're thinking, what if a cast member gets COVID? We'd have to cancel, and how are we going to handle that? And so there was a lot of insecurity throughout this production of what ifs.
Yes, the new normal. Well, you're here and the show is open and people can go see it. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about the show and getting people excited to check it out.
I do want to say one last thing that I'm not sure how well is advertised, but it is more adult content and adult language. So that is something for everybody to remember as they are coming to the show.
Great to know. Thanks a lot, Annie.
Thank you.
Be sure to stick around. We have much more coming your way on RTown. We check in with Abe Sauer from Old Abe and Company, and we sit down with Olmsted County Victim Services to discuss the county's proclamation around Domestic Violence Awareness Month. But up first, we head to Thrive 2020 Women's Conference in this week's Our Culture segment.
Oh Lord, my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the works thy hands have made.
Bridging the Gap has been around for about 25 years, and it is a women's organization for the state of Minnesota.
It's cross-cultural, cross-denominational, and cross-generational, and our mission is to encourage, equip, and empower every woman on her faith journey with Jesus Christ.
How do we do that? We do it in many ways. Obviously, by hosting events like the Thrive Conference.
We have a boutique store with a missional effort. Net profits go towards missional and anti-human trafficking efforts. We also offer online resources, and then we have online communities through Facebook. We also started a podcast, and so that's another resource that we offer. It's called E to the Power of 3. We like to offer resources for leaders, and we believe every woman is a leader in some way, in her home, in her friend circles, in her church, in her workplace. The Thrive Conference is one of the annual events of Bridging the Gap, and it's our state women's conference for girls and women ages 12 and up.
We're going to be doing just some really eclectic things. It's not your ordinary go to church. We're going to do church, but we're going to have fun.
The powerful worship services have a speaker sharing a message with the hope of Jesus Christ related to the theme. This year, the theme is greater. We believe that God is greater than anything that any of us have experienced or could experience in a lifetime. Specifically, even the last year and a half has been quite a year for so many people, but God is greater than any of the circumstances that we have been through. So we want to celebrate together His greatness and the hope that we have in Him.
You're going to see women coming together, worshiping together, listening to an amazing speaker. They will be there just to do community, and we'll see it over and over again.
At the 2021 Thrive Conference this weekend, we have speakers Andy Andrew, Brittany Jones, Alex Seeley, and Havilah Cunnington. The worship team is Emmanuel Live, and they're from the Emmanuel Christian Center Church in Minneapolis.
We have Susie Larson and Amber Gertzman coming in as MCs, and they're both crazy and they're fun.
Kaboom! Welcome to Thrive.
We're excited to be in the larger, beautiful Mayo Civic Center arena, where there's more than double the space of the amount of ticket holders right now.
People can move around, and we can sit up in the bleachers if we need to.
One of the things we're excited about with the Thrive Conference is to invite people to be part of the businesses in Rochester. We want to add value to the downtown community and Rochester as a whole, and so we're encouraging people to check out all of the restaurants, shops, and great locations in downtown Rochester.
It's all about a relationship with Jesus. It's all about a relationship, and we need to have relationships with other people, and those relationships need to be healthy. When I see women's lives changed because they've come to the Thrive Conference, and not just changed for a moment, they have become a better mom, or maybe a better grandparent, or maybe a better wife. We actually can't wait to come back next year. And we've got some amazing speakers that are coming next year.
Come on, for the next 20 seconds, give the Lord a big shout of praise in this place.
For more information about this story and other RTown features, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter at KSMQ #RTown, or ksmq.org/RTown.
Hi, I'm Danielle Teal, your moderator for the RTown Spotlight segment. I'm super excited about this because we spotlight organizations, events, and businesses across Rochester to really focus in on what's up, what's happening, and to share something that is helpful to the community. We'd like to thank 125 Live for hosting, and today we have Abe Sauer with Old Abe and Company. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
We're excited to have We're excited to have you. You got a lot of really good, yummy offerings. I've been there myself and I love it. So first, Abe, share a little bit about Old Abe and Company, kind of real quick and dirty, like how you got started and where you're at right now.
We got started basically just doing beverages, mostly coffee, on a Dutch cargo tricycle, essentially. And we started at the farmer's market, and then we were downtown for a few years after that. And then in 2017, we acquired an old house and we turned it into a vegan cafe, basically.
Which is beautiful. Let's talk about that house. You converted it, and it has beautiful color scheme. It's very vibrant. Why was that the inspiration? Why'd you go that direction?
I mean, it's twofold. One is I think it kind of fits the personality of the place, and it fits the personality of what we do and myself. And also we could afford it.
Really good point.
I mean, it's really that's a huge part of it. Commercial real estate is, in Rochester is expensive. And, if you have a very good planned out business that is going to be popular or something like that and has a proven track record, it's not really a problem to move into, a large commercial space or a long-term, more expensive space. We opened a vegan cafe, which Rochester did not have at the time. And,
are you still the only one?
We're still the only fully vegan cafe.
Wow.
Places like Hot Chip do a really good job with offering a ton of vegan options on their menu. And there's a lot of places like Forager and others that are really starting to beef up their vegan offering. So we're by no means the only place doing vegan food in town anymore. People's Food Co-op, I mean, there's a wider selection all the time. We're just the only fully vegan one that I'm aware of.
Perfect. And where can people find out more info about Old Abe and Company?
You can just Google us. Old Abe,
Google
Abe Rochester. Honestly, it's going to be the easiest way.
It totally is. Yeah.
We're on Old Abe and Company is on Instagram. We try to post every day there and do some fun stuff. It's not always just stuff about our food, stuff about Rochester. And then Facebook, obviously, we're there too. We do have a website. It's kind of more, oldabecoffee.com. It's more informational, and it just gives you hours and things like that. But on all the platforms like Facebook and Instagram, we're there, and you can find our, kind of connection and our phone number and how to order online and delivery or whatever. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Abe. And just to plug real quick, he does have a cart, especially over the summer season. And you can find out more about those details, especially if you want it at your event. Thank you so much for being on the show,
Yeah.
Abe.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in to RTown Spotlight. This is Danielle Teal, your moderator for KSMQ Public Television. Huge thanks to 125 Live for hosting. And Annie Krinick, she is our producer. So grateful for her and all her work with the segment. You can catch up with us on Facebook or Twitter at KSMQ #RTown.
Hello Rochester, this is Michael Wojak with your RTown Rundown. If there's one thing we folks in Rochester love, it's our ear of corn water tower. Don't know where all that passion comes from, but we have a lot of it. And wouldn't you know, we are in a competition right now and voting is ongoing for the Tank of the Year. We are currently sitting in first place, and you can check out the competition and cast your vote at the link below. I one time made the mistake of calling it a corncob water tower in a room full of people, and I was corrected at least 10 times, and I'm not sure some of those folks ever forgave me. So get out there and support a little piece of Rochester history. Going on this weekend, you can catch Evil Dead the Musical at Rochester Civic Theatre. We talked about that a little bit previously. A great show for the season. Encourage you to get out and support local arts. In addition to that, you can check out the Olmsted County History Center website and see their Creepy Doll competition and go out and visit them in person as well. And on October 23rd at 6 p.m., they will be having their Creepy Doll cocktail party at the Castle community downtown. Another fun opportunity to get out and celebrate the season. This Wednesday and every Wednesday coming up through December 15th, the Rochester Arts Center has Wednesdays after work. What time? Well, happens to be on Wednesdays, and it happens to be after work, as the name might suggest. And this is an opportunity to just go up and, as an amateur like myself, try out different forms of arts. The event, it's $10 for non-members, it's free for members, and it's also free for anyone up to 21. So if you're interested in trying out some different forms of art, this might be a great opportunity for you to get out and do a little bit of socializing. And lastly, the Dive Bar Saints will be playing at Mayo Civic Center next Tuesday. It's a band that has Southern harmonies, and they do a great live show as well. That's just a little bit of what's going on in Rochester. I'll catch you next time.
Hi, I'm Danielle Teal with RTown Walkabout. Excited because we are talking with our guest remote, and it's a fun new hotspot in downtown Rochester. Today we have Paige Jenke, owner of Jenke Gear.
I grew up here in Rochester, and I moved away for about 10 years. I lived out west. I did trips for months at a time in Mexico, backpacking. I worked as a chairlift attendant at a ski resort, and I was a sea kayak guide in Alaska. So I jumped all over the place, and I always had a need for gear, and something was always calling me back to Rochester. I decided to open up a consignment outdoor gear shop.
During the pandemic, one of the things that was a silver lining was that people were getting outside.
Rochester's looking to be outside. So people are gearing up for winter, and also people are buying tents still. So we have a bunch of clothing. Everyone needs boots and snow pants and jackets. We also have hats.
Is that a fishing vest? I might have to swing by.
Oh yeah, we have a couple fishing vests here. We have 3 inflatable paddle boards. We also have some very large kayaks. They're angler kayaks.
The skis are out.
Yeah, and we're getting more snowboards, snowshoes, downhill and cross-country skis.
What has been the reaction?
Everyone comes in and they say, what a great idea. I lived in Portland, Oregon for a little bit, and you can buy everything secondhand. And I really wanted it to feel like boutique, kind of like cool thrift store.
Paige, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And this is Danielle Teal with RTown Walkabout. I plan to check out the outdoor hiking swag at Jenke Gear very soon.
On October 5th, the Olmsted County Board of Commissioners voiced its support for Domestic Violence Awareness Month with a proclamation that called on all citizens to increase awareness and understanding of domestic violence. The county signed this proclamation a few short days after the murder of Kiona Foote, her unborn child, and her 2-year-old daughter, Mayona. And I want to say their names here today because they represent community members, neighbors, real people, and families that are deeply impacted by domestic violence in our city every year. Today, to talk to us about domestic violence awareness in the community is Victim Services Program Manager Laura Sutherland. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you. Appreciate your coverage of this important issue.
Definitely. We know, or at least I know, I'm not sure if everyone knows, that the pandemic has really exacerbated the domestic violence issues in our country and our community exponentially. Can you talk about what are some of the factors that have led to this increase?
Yes. One of the things I guess I'd like to point out first is that the increase in domestic violence in our community here in Rochester and Olmsted County is not just tied to the pandemic. And I think that's an important thing for listeners to understand. Since we keep track of our numbers, of course, every year for grant purposes and other purposes. And since 2015, over a 5-year trajectory to 2020, we've seen over a 500% increase in a request for services related to supporting victims of domestic violence. So while the pandemic certainly has exacerbated DV, this is really a disturbing trend we've seen for a long time. And one other thing that I would point out is that the trend that we've seen in Rochester and Olmsted County is also mirrored at the state level. We have a Minnesota state organization called Violence Free Minnesota. And since 1989, they have been keeping track of the homicides in our state directly connected to domestic violence, intimate partner violence. And again, since 1989, we're actually seeing those numbers increase and not decrease. In 2020, there were 30 homicides related to intimate partner violence. And I think in 1989, it was less than 20.
Laura, can you define what domestic violence is and the type of domestic violence cases that you're kind of dealing with as a county and the community?
Sure. I think a generally accepted definition of domestic violence is a pattern of power and control from one partner towards another. And there's many components to that pattern of control. The most severe, obviously, being physical or sexual violence, or the absolute worst, death. But it also contains a lot of other components, domestic violence, which includes emotional abuse, where people are subjected to regular put downs, threats such as displays of weapons or punching a wall, isolation of the victim from family and friends. So it's much more than just the actual physical abuse. So that's how I would respond to the question of what is domestic abuse. I'm sorry, what was your second question?
Oh, no, that's it. And I think it was just, I think people might have sort of a vision of what it is, and it usually is around physical domestic violence. And so it's great. It's good to also get some clarity around what sort of the range of what that looks like and what abuse looks like within that context.
In terms of the cases that our office is involved with, we partner in Olmsted County with the Women's Shelter, who provides housing and services to domestic violence victims, as well as the Intercultural Mutual Assistance Association, which particularly provides support to victims from our refugee and immigrant communities. But in our county victim service office, we have typically provided services for those very egregious cases, such as the one you mentioned earlier in this broadcast, Kiana Foote, that our office is involved in supporting her family. She was the victim of a homicide, as well as her 2-year-old daughter and her unborn child. So the cases that we are involved in tend to be ones with a very, very high level of violence.
And in terms of the community resources that exist in the county, can you talk a little bit about some of the services that you're providing to these victims?
Yes, in the cases that our office is involved in, we are very involved in providing that victim or the victim's family support from the time of the abuse all the way through, perhaps getting a medical exam at St. Mary's or making a report to law enforcement, and then supporting the victim throughout the trial process and even post-conviction. And part of that support involves connection to therapeutic resources, as well as emergency funds and whatever referrals might be needed to support that victim.
What you're underlining here too is the importance of that sort of community partnership to address these issues and these cases.
I'll just go through a couple of resources that it might be helpful for viewers to know about, even if it goes up on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
The shelter offers a weekly domestic violence support group that they provide transportation to and provide childcare for. It's topic-based. And that's open to all community members, not just folks staying in the shelter. And that's a really valuable support group for folks who are considering leaving domestic violence. There's also a couple of websites that are particularly helpful, I think. One is called Love is Respect, where people can go on and take quizzes to try and ascertain how healthy or unhealthy their relationship is. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline, as well as the hotline phone numbers for our program in the shelter. So
Well, thank you so much, Laura, for spending some time with us here today to tell us a little bit more about domestic violence awareness. And thank you for the work that you do in the community.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us today. For more wonderful content produced right here in Rochester, please be sure to check us out on Facebook and on Twitter at #RTown. Be well and stay safe. We will see you next time on RTown, the show about Rochester.
Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.